Hi everyone. This is Lexi with our office hours today on September 2nd. Starting off that fall season. I know fall isn't really technically for a little bit longer, um, but we're starting to get that cooler weather here in Colorado, and hopefully those other states are starting to cool off a little as well. Um, so for the month of September, we are talking all about motivation. Um, you know, what motivates us to run and train, and then also what tends to steal our motivation, what takes it away from us. And that's what we're going to focus on a little bit more of today. I think in speaking with the athletes that we work with as coaches, we've noticed that there's been a little bit of a drop really since, March when the world changed a little bit. But even before that, losing motivation or having trouble keeping up with motivation is something that athletes struggle with. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about what takes our motivation, what steals from us, what empties that cup, and what we can do to revamp ourselves, to bring ourselves back into that enthusiasm for training, for running, getting out the door, and taking care of ourselves. So I like to think of motivation like a cup of water. We have our cup of water, it's full to the top, and little things will take out some, drop by drop. So of the four main characteristic or main um, motivation stealers, first we have stress. Second is lack of self care. Third is not feeling successful. And fourth is fatigue and injury. So today I'm going to kind of go through each one of those four motivation stealers and talk about what we can do to increase our motivation. I'm also going to post some resources in the comments of this. So at the end, you can look through and hopefully get a little bit of that motivation back. So first, stress. We talked about this a little bit last week, but our body doesn't differentiate the different kinds of stress that we feel. So common, like every runner I've ever spoken to says that they use running and they use exercise to decrease their stress. It's their main coping mechanism, which is awesome. 100% agree, 100% believe that exercise is part of managing depression, anxiety, and just general, the feelings of being overwhelmed and stress. However, our body doesn't differentiate between physical stress and emotional stress. So, say you're stressed with your family, your work, school, whatever it may be, and you're feeling that you're physiologically reacting to that. It's not just all in here. You might get those symptoms of the tight shoulders, the upset stomach, headaches, whatever it is in your world. It's also a really important thing to kind of like look to see where your body manifests this stress. Where do you hold it? Do some body scans with that, which we'll talk about in a second. So you have this stress, and then you go and you work out. You're training for that marathon. You're running every day. You're hitting your workouts, and then it's just like feeling heavy. You're just not enjoying it. A lot of times with women, we get this like a lot of bloat, a lot of like stomach bloating and heaviness there, a lot of water weight. Other people get that really fatigued, tired feeling in their legs. You're feeling tired and sleepy even though you're resting a lot. Or maybe you're not able to sleep. Maybe you're staying up all night stressing and anxious. So this is because as human beings, we're kind of cool and wired to protect ourselves from famine or starvation or attacks from, I don't know, wild goats. So our body feels the stress that we're getting from work, from school, from family, whatever. And then it's getting the stress from we're running, 60 miles a week and not getting enough calories. And instead of like processing those two different kinds of stress, saying like, oh, this is work stress, this is training stress, it's saying, oh my gosh, like alert, alert, alert. There's something very stressful going on. Are we at war? Are we under attack? Are we starving? What's happening? What are we running from? And so your body's not resting. Like you're not going into your rest state ever because there's nothing calming in your life. So stress definitely takes a lot out of us, as you could imagine. There's a few different ways that we can deal with stress. Sorry, I have lots of notes here, making sure I covered all my topics. This is something that I'm really passionate about, coming from working in the mental health world and just being the kind of hippy dippy person that I am. I believe breathing exercises are a really great way to calm yourself down. So while it's maybe not realistic to just like not feel stressed, right? We can do things to relax our body and remind our body that, we're not permanently running from something. So I like to do what they're called. Um, there's a few different things. So what I like to do, let me see if I can position myself on this camera so you can see me a little better. Put one hand on my stomach, right here, and the other hand on my sternum. And a big full breath. Fill up both your belly and your chest. And exhale fully. So working with kids, I call these balloon breaths because it's like what you're doing to fill up a balloon. We can also call them full breaths, belly breaths. A lot of times when we're stressed, we only breathe into one or the other. A lot of times, like if you're like having an anxiety attack and you put your hand on your chest, you only feel the air coming here. Same thing can happen with our stomach. And when we get side stitches when we're running, same thing. So I probably have talked about this on office hours before in terms of side stitches. If you've watched any of my mindfulness videos, we start off with these breaths every time. I like to have my hands here and again on the stomach because those are also centering places. Some other centering places you can put your hands are on your neck like this. And just breathe fully. You won't be able to feel your chest and stomach expand, but it's calming. You also put your hand on your chest and the other on your forehead. Both hands on the back of your head, or one on the back of your head and one on your chest. Often touching the face, the head, the chest is a little bit more relaxing for people than putting their hands on their stomach, especially if you have any body weight, dysmorphia, negative self-talk about your stomach. This can be kind of more triggering to put your hands on it. However, if that doesn't bother you, I recommend here and here as you start to really make sure that you're getting in those full breaths. There's also the Ujjayi breath, which is fully expanding. Again, when working with people who are newer to breath work or working with kiddos, I tell them to picture breathing in a color and breathing it out to kind of start out. So breathe in something that's nice and calming for you. For me, that's like a light blue, a teal, a lavender. And then breathe out what's negative. And then fully getting it out. Finally, the fun one, I think, is the lion's breath. So that's where we're going to breathe in. And then tongue out. Look silly. Don't be worried about like how goofy you look. You can either make some noises with it. Again, working with kiddos, that's kind of fun to, really roar as we let out that breath. So those are some calming things you can do if you're feeling that stress, anxiety at work, before a run, if you get back from a run and you're just feeling heavy and tired. Getting into the practice of using these mindfulness or using these breathing techniques can really calm you down. Along with that, there's also meditation and mindfulness. I'll put a couple of links to some resources, including my podcast, where I just do guided meditation and mindfulness for runners. So if you're not already sick of my voice, you might enjoy that. But there's lots of other options. I also just recommend going for a walk, a run without any headphones, and just trying to engage yourself into the world, relaxing. I'm going to talk more about this in a few days, I think, about how to use mindfulness as motivation, how to kind of recenter yourself. Finally, dealing with anxiety and stress as they arise rather than dealing with them through running. A lot of times I think runners tend to want to avoid. There's a horror, I hate this saying, but like, what are you running for? Are you running to something or running from something? I disagree. Like, I just like to run. I don't feel like I'm escaping anything most of the time, but sometimes I am. And in those situations, we're not dealing with the stress inside of us, which means that we're going to continue living in this stressed, anxious state and not repairing our bodies, not healing, and not really, we're kind of running with the emergency brake on, because we're not fully recovering ever if we're constantly in the stress state. So dealing with those things when they come up, if you're interested on how to deal with uncomfortable or unpleasant thoughts, I used to lead a group on this, and I'd love to talk about it and tell you all the things and the acronyms and the fun stuff we can do. Um, moving on. The next thing that tends to steal our motivation is our lack of self-care. So a lot of people like think, I think self-care has kind of almost gotten like this like negative connotation over the past few years because people kind of like use it as an excuse to escape life, like, oh, self-care, like not going to that appointment, which it's not. I mean, sometimes that is self-care, but it's also something so much deeper in like a, I like to think of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Like you meet all your needs, but you start to get to the emotional, the mental, the social, and that's where our self care is going to come in, and that's what's going to help us function as human beings, and just be better human beings as well as better athletes. So what happens is we get stressed, we get tired, and we don't keep up with our self care. We're burning the candle at both ends. And usually the first thing we stop taking care of is ourselves. Um, and of course, like you can't stop being a parent, you can't stop working. We have these responsibilities in life that we need to keep up with. And that's why it's important to kind of come up with that self-care regimen to make sure that you're taking care of your being. So I kind of broke this into physical, mental, and emotional. You could probably also throw in spiritual, which we can talk about a little bit more at another time. But I think right now, like sticking to these and kind of throwing spiritual in with emotional, will work. So for physical, first is sleep. Like sleep is so important. There's nothing that can replace a good night of sleep. Sure, a 20-minute nap here and there can help, and sometimes you need that. But it's not going to help your body repair. It's not going to help your mind repair. You're just going to be getting more and more exhausted and lose that motivation. Think about a time you haven't gotten a good night of sleep. Like, how motivated were you to run the next day? Now imagine that you're not sleeping real great for like months or years at a time. You're not going to have motivation. You're not going to feel like yourself, and that could be a real problem. Everyone's different. I mean, there's the good sleep hygiene, which, so many of us don't follow, myself included. I always read or watch something before bed, sometimes in bed. But I also know like I need my sleepy time tea. I need to like remove myself from any stressors or anxieties like the hour before bed. Otherwise I'm going to fixate on them. And making sure that I get that restful time and that I'm really trying actively to get enough sleep, even if I'm not fully physically asleep the whole time. As long as I'm like aiming for that, I'm going to feel better than if I just like shortchange myself. So sleep, super important. Next is going to be eating well. So this can go both ways, right? Like sometimes we eat foods that aren't very good for us and we don't feel very good. We have certain foods that might trigger bad reactions. And we know this, but it's easy and quick and we do that. Then there's also just like maybe not eating enough. If you've increased your training and you're not getting enough of nutrition in you, you're going to feel really weak and tired. Finally, just eating the right foods. And that's what I'm going to talk the most about, because I think there's a lot of power in what we put in our bodies, especially in terms of energy, motivation, and happiness, which I think happiness and motivation are so closely tied. So if you're going through a depressive time, you might be having a lot of trouble motivating yourself, and that's to be expected, right? Like serotonin, dopamine are down. Like, why would you have energy to get out? So some foods that are going to kind of help boost your mood, boost your motivation, give you that energy, are going to be bananas. They're like one of the best. Fatty fish, getting that B vitamins, getting the omega-3s, that's going to help. Brown rice, sweet potatoes, which are my favorite, eggs, apples, water. For me, when my mood is really down, my motivation's down, my energy's down, eating like salmon, sweet potatoes, or sweet potatoes and eggs, I really feel that boost, especially if I kind of make that part of my diet for like a week. I start to feel a lot better. I mean, that's not like all I eat. That would be, kind of going to the opposite side of the spectrum of like, again, not getting all the right foods, but it does help a lot. Making sure you're hydrating. Sometimes we go from coffee to beer a little bit too quickly, myself included. Making sure you're getting that water, making sure that you're, really taking care of yourself in that way. Okay. So that's the physical. Moving on to the mental, we start to look at our mood, look at our motivation, looking at how that affects us. We'll talk a little bit more about mood in the emotional side as well. But again, I think they're very much connected. If you're not thinking clearly, it tends to be because you're in a place where you're not very happy. Um, so this is where affirmations can help. This is where meditation can help. This is where giving yourself that time to like fully shut down and kind of re-engage is going to be instrumental in getting that motivation back. Again, kind of connecting the emotional with the mental. Going to see a therapist is going to be something that could really help that motivation. If you're just feeling that throughout life, like not just in running, if you're feeling like really like you're just struggling to do anything, talking to someone could really help and kind of like acknowledge why that might be going on, where those stressors are coming from, where that exhaustion is coming from. Going into the emotional, the social, the spiritual, we have engaging with friends, family members, and getting that like social connection. I mean, right now that's not a thing we can do easily in person, but it is something that we are able to do virtually. Maybe that your bubble is expanded to where you can run with a friend or two. Maybe you have run groups where you feel safe going right now. And I encourage that. I think having those running buddies, having those running groups can be one of the best motivators. Not only is it getting you out the door, you're promising someone you'll be there, but you're also getting that social engagement as you're out there. The next is so seeking growth opportunities. So making sure that you're feeling challenged. You're not going to feel motivated if you're just going out and doing the exact same thing every day. Whether that's at work you're not feeling challenged, emotionally you're not feeling challenged in life, you don't feel like you're growing, or athletically if you just feel like you're going out and you're running the same pace every single day forever, doing the same mileage and not setting goals, you're just not going to want to do it. And that's where setting goals, signing up for races, finding challenges to do can be really helpful. Of course, there's just the love of running, and you do it because you love it and it makes you happy, and it decreases your anxiety and stress. But then there's also that goal setting, that motivation chasing, the challenging yourself that is huge. And then finally, it's just doing kind things for yourself. Giving yourself those affirmations, or even sometimes like giving yourself a small gift. It can either be a reward for, I got out and ran every day this month, so I'm going to get a new pair of shorts, or I'm going to sign up for that race, or I'm going to buy myself that fancy coffee to reward myself after the hard run. Things like that can kind of help the motivation as well. And you're doing something kind for yourself. You're like being your own best advocate and friend. So while it sounds silly, it sounds like how is that a way to motivate yourself? Just think of yourself as like if your best friend were to do that for you, your partner, your coach, whoever, how'd that make you feel? Now just do it for yourself. So sorry, talking a lot, so I'm losing my voice. Another thing that takes our motivation is not feeling successful. I would say this is probably one of the biggest things that almost every athlete I have worked at some point has at least experienced a little bit. You're training hard, you're working hard, and you're just not getting those results that you want. It's hard to stay motivated, right? I think this comes up a lot. We just had the summer it's hot. It's hard to keep your speed up during that time. Same thing here in Colorado. It gets cold and icy in the winter. It's hard to get out for those workouts. You might be on the treadmill a lot. And you're just not feeling fast. Maybe you're not getting those PRs. Maybe you're not hitting those workout paces. Whatever it is, you're not feeling successful. It's really, really, really hard to feel okay about yourself. So there's this, kick my chair. This concept of automatic negative thoughts, or ants. And what it is that we're just kind of hardwired as human beings to be like worry warts, always looking for the worst, thinking the worst about ourselves, and like perpetually seeking this improvement. I'm going to post it in the comments, but there's this really awesome, I think it's a commencement address by David Foster Wallace called "This is Water." and it talks. I love it. I used it in groups all the time when I talked about automatic negative thoughts. Um, but it really goes into like how humans think and how we're wired to be kind of these like negative, pessimistic beings. Um, which even I think everyone to some degree has experienced a little bit, especially when it comes to comparing yourself to yourself. Um, so, in dealing with this automatic negative thoughts, what helps is to truly like acknowledge, what am I thinking? How do I feel like a failure? Okay, so I ran this tempo workout, 2 months ago, ran it perfectly, did it again, and I am 10 seconds per mile slower on my hard intervals. Why? So, yeah, there could be lots of reasons. So, first think, why does this bother me? Why am I upset about this? Okay, I feel like I'm slowing down. I feel like I'm not working hard enough. I feel like I'm a failure. Okay, and then starting to examine those feelings. Like, why is this upsetting to feel like a failure? Oh, well, I always challenge running is what I do. I need to be better. Like, I need to show my athletes that I'm strong. Okay, like, what is the worst case scenario if that happens? I'm going to get fired by an athlete. Okay, is that a reality, or is this just a story I'm telling myself? It's a story. And you can also kind of stop them by using the coping mechanisms. So again, we can talk about this more because I think otherwise I would ramble forever and it would get really, really boring for most of you. Um, but we start to like kind of, stop that uncomfortable thought. When I start to spin out like I'm a failure, I'm a failure, I'm a failure, I'm a failure. Stop. Do something that calms you. Breathing exercises. It could be doing a different activity. It could be, a sensation. So for some people, it's like, the stress balls. It can be like running your hands under cold water, something that just kind of brings you back to the present moment, and then practicing that mindfulness to move forward. And this is also where we can start to use those affirmations. We can use that positive self-talk. Like, yes, 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 I know I feel like a failure right now. However, and that's what it's called, dialectical behavioral therapy, where you can have two opposing thoughts at the same time. So you're like, yes, 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 I feel like a failure, and not but, not whatever. And I'm also working really hard. Summer just ended. I'm coming back from an injury. I'm stressed. I didn't sleep well. Like, not giving yourself excuses necessarily, but being honest about your current situation. Um, and then just kind of stopping those thoughts before they manifest into something huge that's like, preventing you from getting out for your run every morning because you're just like laying there thinking, I'm a failure. Why am I even bothering? That's not going to get you anywhere. So, along with that, sorry, looking at my notes. Um, it's also remembering your why. Why are you running? Why are you wanting to train? Why are you doing triathlons? What gets you out the door? And hopefully it's something bigger than just like, I want to race, which it could be that. It could be, I want to qualify for Boston, but really, why do you want to qualify for Boston? What will that bring you? Looking at your goals. And again, we posted an article on setting goals and how to create a SMART goal yesterday. Check it out. Or writing a goal. Why is this goal important to you? Why does it mean a lot? Why do you enjoy running? And maybe it is like we start out with something like weight loss, and that's not going to feel motivating for a long period of time. Like, you're like, yeah, I want to lose weight and feel good. But develop more of a why. I want to take care of myself. I want to be strong. I feel strong when I run. Things like that are going to keep that motivation higher than like, I want to lose weight and go down to two pant sizes. That'll be great until you go down two pant sizes. So keeping that goal moving, making sure that your goals are able to change and adapt and evolve as you do as well. And that your why also does. I mean, probably we're not doing the same things for the same reasons as we were a decade ago. No matter who you are, things change. But then there's also the importance of giving yourself grace without giving up. We've all had those days where you're trying to get out for a run, you're feeling exhausted, you're feeling stressed, you don't have any motivation, and you just like struggle through it. It's not fun. You feel worse after than you did when you started. And you know what? Maybe those are the days that you just call it. You go and do something fun instead. You go for a bike ride, you go for a walk, you go to the gym, you meet a friend for coffee, whatever. Like, it's okay to skip some workouts, but don't do it all the time. And I think that's the fine line, right? Is like we're missing that motivation. We're not feeling it. And just like give yourself a day off, enjoy, and then get out there the next day. If you keep giving yourself that day off and giving yourself that day off and giving yourself that day off, then it's going to be even harder because not only we're not feeling motivated, but we're also losing that fitness. We've already feel like we failed. So finding that balance. The last thing is make sure that training is fun. It doesn't mean that every workout every day is like an amusement park, but that you overall are enjoying it. What I do with my athletes is a lot of times I plan like an adventure day, or a fun day, or a family day, or a friend day, or depending on who my client is and what's important to them, because that's what makes training more fun. So plan one day that you do a group run, you run with a friend, if that's your thing. Plan a day that, you go for a tough trail run, even if you're not a trail runner, you go for a hike, you go for a bike ride, something that just makes you happy, something that will only bring you joy. Um, and it's going to be something to look forward to. You start to look forward to those group runs. You look forward to the run that you eat the piece of cheesecake after. I don't know what makes you happy, man. Whatever it is, just do it. And it's just going to give you that little bit of extra motivation, that little bit of extra pizzazz in your training plan. So finally, the last thing that takes energy from us and motivation from us is fatigue and injury. So fatigue can come from a few different things. Again, it can kind of go back to diet, it can go back to sleep, it can go back to everything else we've just talked about. It can also come from overtraining. And so if you're working out really hard and everything else in life is really hard and you're burning the candle at both ends and you're exhausted, like you're not going to get that energy back until you relax. And that might just be something you need to do, is tone it down until you start to feel that energy and that enthusiasm again. Coming back from an injury or an illness also has some challenges. You're just not feeling as strong as you were before. I don't know if anyone's had like a stomach bug or something like that, where you're very sick and you lose a lot of nutrients, you lose a lot of power, maybe you lost some muscle. It's going to be really hard to get back, and you just have to give yourself that grace and start back slow, and you'll get back to where you were. And just remember that, and don't get stuck in the like, I'm so slow, I can't do this, this is hard. I promise it will come back. So that's, I think the final thing I've heard people talk about, taking that motivation and strength. The last thing I kind of want to talk about is just the current state of the world and how that affects our motivation. So there's this thing called compassion fatigue. When I worked in mental health, we talked about this a lot in terms of our job. It can also be called like vicarious trauma if it's something a little bit, quote unquote, more traumatic, but like trauma's in the eyes of the beholder, right? So vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, whatever you want to call it, what it is when you're not directly experiencing a tiring or traumatic event, but you're caring for somebody who is. And yeah, so right now, who this is happening, like this is happening to everyone, but there's like different groups that we'll talk about real quick. So first, looking at parents or caretakers, or people who are working in as teachers, as essential workers, as nurses, as doctors, truck drivers, anyone who's, essential right now. They're getting a lot of pressure there. The world is depending on them. It's a stressful time. They're not getting this quarantine, I don't want to say break, but they're not getting this time that the rest of us are getting. But they're still dealing with all these stresses. And so this compassion fatigue is going to take a lot of their energy. They're busy taking care of others, and it's going to steal from what they have in their cup for themselves. This is also happening to parents or somebody who might be caring for an elderly parent. If you're dealing with a partner who might have some of their own anxieties and depressions that are springing, or any mental unwellness that is springing up due to the current situation, and things are getting a lot more stressful and tiring. You're working overtime. Your body and your brain and your emotional output is more than it has been before. And just like the cup of motivation or cup of strength also doesn't get refilled that easily. We can't just give and give and give and like it's ever refilling from the spring. Like it's going to run dry. And then finally, just the news cycle that we go through is this theory called the CNN effect, but it also goes into compassion fatigue, where we're constantly hearing these really difficult things. Whatever your political leaning is, whatever news channel you watch or listen to, you're probably hearing things that are just bringing you down emotionally. And this is going to affect how we adapt physically. Even if you're not consciously thinking about it, when you're hearing this continuous cycle of everything that's wrong with the world, from the election to the coronavirus to what's going on socially in our country and politically in our country, and some very, very sad, troubling things that can be really detrimental to watch and hear. While they're incredibly important, and I'm not saying don't pay attention to them, what I'm saying is be mindful of what you're taking in, how you're taking it in, and make sure you're processing it. Whether that's talking about with another person, journaling about it, giving yourself a moment to reflect and be like, oh, that was a really hard emotional thing to hear. Okay, check in with yourself, acknowledge it, give yourself that uncomfortable, quiet moment. Uncomfortable, right? And move forward. It's going to give you a little bit more of that energy. Of course, everything right now is really challenging. Like, don't feel like you have to be going and getting all your PRs and doing the best and running every virtual race and being amazing right now. Like, I think surviving is a lot, and taking care of yourself is a lot, and just know we're all here for you. I guess this has turned into my like weird gushy soapbox, but as right now I have the chair to, the platform to speak for lifelong endurance. We all care about you an awful lot. Whoever you are, I know your coach cares. I know that you can probably reach out to myself and probably any of our coaches. To be honest, they're all wonderful, amazing human beings, and tell us if you're not doing okay. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling not motivated, if you're feeling annoyed with your training, whatever, let someone here know, and we can help you. We can move forward together. But yeah, motivation. Tune in the rest of this month as we talk more about it, and I will see you next week. Oh, sent out the newsletter last night. If anyone saw that, we have some events coming up. Coach Stacy is doing her Saturday in the Park on the 10th. We're doing a group run on the 26th. We're going to have our, I'm sorry. Coach Stacy is doing her park on the 12th. We're going to have virtual happy hour on the 10th. Sorry, I knew those were important days. Office hours every Wednesday. If there's anything else you want to see, let us know. We have a contest to create a vision board. You could win a 35% off coupon for a Garmin device, which is amazing. Anyway, that's what's going on at Lifelong Endurance. Have a great day.